what I'm gonna do, it automatically goes into record. I go right here.
Okay. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'd like to call this meeting of the Columbia Open Space Committee to order. And, roll call. Let's see if we have Paul Ramsey, Todd Shepherd, that I believe is Joan Hill. Anybody else virtual? Okay.
I'm sure more will join. I do want to set the tone of this meeting, though, by saying that I'm in Southwest Florida and it's going to be 84 degrees today. Just keep
Thank you.
that in
It'll
mind.
be 74 today here. We have Ron Whitcomb, Paul Zader, Tom McGrath, me, Rob Hellstrom, and Chris Tolstor. I believe we're missing Justin Riendu. Riendu. And let's see, first of all, I'd like to entertain a motion from someone to approve the minutes of January 20th.
I
move.
January 20th.
Okay,
Second.
second, that's Ron Whitcomb. Is there any discussion, adjustments, changes? No, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Just me.
Yep,
Just one.
Paul Zader was absent. So he abstains. Okay, audience of citizens.
I'm McGrath. So we had a meeting a few weeks ago to discuss the idea of forming the Friends of Mono Pond State Park. And afterwards, I told Paul Ramsey that I would head that up for now to getting it off the ground. And so far, we have not been able to find an attorney that will work with us for free. So that's one of the things that will happen in the future. But there's a lot of the steps that we can take before we actually create a 501c3, so we can form the organization and bylaws and all that stuff. So that's what we'll be moving forward to do. Right now, we have a meeting scheduled here for 7 p.m. next Thursday night. And by then, the people that have shown an interest, I'm going to send out what I've put together for documents prior to that. And the email distribution that I had from Paul, I explained to people that it really was at this point just forming the organization, that we weren't solving any problems. So for those people that are interested in forming the organization, they're welcome to attend. If they want to solve problems, that's for a future day. And I'm here now trying to figure out what our role is with the town, as the town has a shared responsibility with the state for some of the things there. So if this Friends group is created, is it going to be recognized by the town, or is there going to be a separate committee as a part of open space or conservation that will be the focus of Mono Pond? Just that bureaucracy, what is it? How are we going to be? If we're not going to be treated as a peer or whatever, then there's not a whole lot of point in creating it. So.
Good point. Thank you.
Yep.
I have one question for you. And I lost it. I'll get that.
Yes, I will take money under the table.
Can I ask a question again? Have you
Yeah.
seen, I'm only aware of the friends groups that I worked with in East Hampton. So there's the Friends of Gillette's Castle and Friends of Mono Pond State Park.
Yep.
But back when I was first selectman, those groups did not report to the town at all. They did their own thing, whatever they wanted, and raised a group of volunteers and mainly did trail maintenance and park projects. But if they needed anything, they could come to the town. But they, like at Gillette's Castle, the Friends group would run a whole Christmas gala with vendors. I think it was almost easier for them not being part of the town, because they just did whatever they wanted.
Yeah, it's like, years ago, we talked about creating a Friends of Zegna Farm group to do stuff,
Right.
and then we didn't go forward with that. So this whole idea of having a Friends of Mono Pond State Park was not on my radar until Paul invited me to a meeting. So I'm kind of learning as I go along, and all that I read of all the different friends groups, they pretty much work independently, and they're independent of each other as far as.
I'll reach out to Melissa Jebron. She was a state rep, but she led the charge to create the Macamudas State Park Friends Group. Back, I think it was originally called Sunrise, it was Sunrise Resort when the state bought it. And she was instrumental in really bulldozing all the old cabins, and the Friends groups did a lot of labor partnering with the state.
Yep.
To clean that park up, because back when I was first selected, we had people living in that park, you know, homeless.
Yep, no, I understand.
It was bad.
Yeah.
So the state park bulldozed it. And that was very successful. Now it's super popular.
Well, like right now, the list of people that Paul put together, half of them, we'll say a third of them are from the Island Woods neighborhood that, bought the property, and a third of them are down on Hunt Road that abut the boat launch area, and then a third are the group of people that are here, part of open space. So most of us that have been in that area have been informal volunteers doing trail maintenance and trailblazing and all that anyway, without an organization. But from what I understand from Friends Group is you're not supposed to replace anything that would be paid employment by state or town employees. So figuring out what that role is, that the town has some responsibilities to plow the parking lot or
Right.
do different
And we
things.
still do that.
Who knows, down the road, does the town or the state give us a bucket of paint, but we're the volunteers, we use the, do we help, do we suggest where a trail goes, or does the state says, no, we've decided that we're the trail? So all this is a relationship we have to figure out. What does the state want from us? What does the town want
We
from us?
had, we had the state parks,
David Buckley.
David Buckley in.
That was my question for Paul Ramsey and for you, Tom. Have you had any response, any contact with David Buckley?
So a couple of weeks ago, so I live right there, my property abuts it, so when we got snow, I go out snowshoeing. So I was out snowshoeing a couple of weeks ago, and I saw there was all kinds of tracks and stuff out there for vehicles, and I'm like, oh, it's the kids with ATVs. Well, it wasn't, it was the power company is working on cleaning up that whole power corridor.
Right.
Yep.
So I took some pictures of what was going on and sent an email to David Buckley and asked him, hey, while they're doing this, maybe you could reach out to him, ask him to do a little more on connecting the old wetlands area there at the south end of the pond. They could brush hog it and throw in a couple of culverts as a part of their work. We'd have a trail to get, connected from the boat launch to the Markel property, but I have not heard back from him.
So.
So I'll reach out to him.
No response?
No, I mean, it's like anything, I don't know if he even saw my email or if he, has thought about it or acted on it. I don't know. I've never talked to him, but I'll reach out to
I
him.
think you have to leave both voicemails and emails, Tom. I think he's slow to get back, but if you done him, you'll hear from him.
Yeah, anyway, the power company is working on cleaning up that corridor all the way to Willimantic over the next year. So, but they had permission to take their vehicles along the airline trail through the gates and up into there.
Yep.
So, and I'm like, well, if they can do that, then they certainly could bring materials down and build a bridge or something to cross that wetlands.
And that's our big stumbling block right now.
Yes,
How to
It
get,
is.
how to get that done.
Yeah, from my perspective, I don't think that trail would be used a lot by walkers to walk all the way from the boat launch up across there to get to the Markel property. Having walked a lot of the Markel property, that is a much nicer, drier area for trails and biking and everything else. And I would think that having a parking area off of Pine Street or 207 or something else would be the way to go. But I'm sure the state will value my opinion.
okay. Any other audience of citizens? Okay. All right,
And I don't know if you got Honor's email first thing this morning, but she said that she would be late if she attended at all because she had childcare responsibilities.
Yep.
But she did say that they were meeting with the state about that, about that trails group, and that there might be some state funding available for planning, I think.
Yeah, no, I had not read that yet. So I'll read that one again. Okay, new business. What do you call this COVID fund? American
ARPA. ARPA,
ARPA
American Rescue Plan.
Rescue
Act.
Act.
Act. What's the P?
Plan.
Plan Act. Okay, next year, we will get more money. I mean, nothing's ever carved in stone. But this year, we were asleep at the draw. And people in town who were ready and had projects like the fire department and public works, they were ready, had all their facts and figures and plans. And so they will get this year's money. But I thought we really shouldn't have let that slide by, you know, money that doesn't come out of the taxpayers in town's pot. And so we have just acquired the swamp across the street. And I was thinking that perhaps a marsh boardwalk with marsh feet out into partway into that swamp would be a wonderful bird watching opportunity. And you know, boardwalks can be expensive to build, and I think we would have difficulty getting that through the regular budget. Because, you know, it would not be a high priority. But I think that if we applied to the town for some of the ARPA money, that we might have a chance to do that. And the conditions, I don't know if it was written condition or if it was just a handshake condition, was that the Ram brothers would donate this property to honor their mother. Well, I just found out that she died a day or two ago. And so I think it would be very important to the town and to the Ram brothers who generously donated this property. If we did something a little more than just plopping it on the park bench. So,
Where would you envision this being located?
well, ideally it would be near the dam, but I don't think the access to that is good. So we'd have to go out and take a look. And it might be off of Thompson's. But I was started to pick Rob's brain because you've surveyed it, right?
Well, I did a survey that originally, but I'm aware of it. I did some work in there.
Yeah, okay. So, so we'll have to go out and look at it. And, you know, we can all go if we want, or Rob, I'll go. Whoever.
Mark and I hope in the near future, I'm glad it gets a little less unpredictable. We're gonna try to walk it and find the boundaries. So that might be a first step before we
Yes,
do anything, at least know where we are.
definitely.
And then we can see what looks,
We have to do both properties,
yeah, and also
the one behind the end of Wells Road.
Yes, and I'm very anxious to do that one too.
We have this, kind of this, Rob and I was the mailer.
The
He
one,
showed me which trees.
Just so that I can clarify, so we can clarify where that is, I'm looking at the property lines behind the Beckish Center, and then you mentioned Tungus,
yes,
all the way up in the back. Is that that section that's kind of like a V shape? Okay.
yes,
It's mostly
Yeah.
marsh.
Yes, yeah.
it is. And there should be an access from Route 66 or the senior center along 66. I'm not real clear on that. And there's definitely an access from Tungus Drive. And
Mark, just to
so
clarify,
we
are
have
all
to
the,
check.
are all the funds actually allocated now? I know the fire department came in for a huge request.
There's a public hearing for the second half of the first round to allocate funds for 4 projects. And that is on, that'll be on March 1st at 6:45. And then the second round of funds will not be here until June. Another 800,000.
Okay, so that's what we could possibly put in?
Right.
Right,
So I think what you need to do is you, in these next few months, is, we'll mark the whole property, we'll walk it, we'll decide where's best, we'll get quotes from builders, because we need to know what's involved. There might be a chance, there could be some donated money as well. Rams had mentioned that might be able to help. And then make a presentation to, really the presentation, the final decision makers are the board of selectmen. So I would present to them in advance of the public hearing so that, you're in line. Because the requests for the money is far more than the amount of money we have.
Oh, really? What a surprise.
There's endless ideas on what we could spend that money on.
we could spend it, we've spent it.
I
10
probably need an
times.
extra 2 million to hit every wish, so. But you have a good proposal here,
I think so, and
unless it costs a lot.
And I also think that this should be considered highly for the ARPA money, because I don't think it would ever be considered highly for the regular town budget that comes out of the local tax money. This is like, the ARPA money is more like a Christmas gift than your hard-earned cash. So I personally, I feel that that sort of money, rather than just easing the taxpayer money, which we would have paid anyway, would be for a project that's a little above and beyond or extra like this one. Plus, I don't think it will be a huge chunk of money, especially if DPW does some good work.
And we also
So-
have a real talented maintainer facility
Yeah.
with Dan Johnson. He's an
Yeah.
incredible builder.
So
Okay.
those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts?
I think it's a great idea. I think so.
Do something. It looks like the best
I had
access.
a, I had a, I had a slightly different take on the American Rescue Act Plan funds, and that was that I just wondered if, I don't know if it could go into this year's budget because it never has before, but I was looking at those funds as maybe some type of set aside for the project that might be coming up that Honor has talked about in executive session. I just think that if that suddenly becomes a reality, that we're going to be looking for, oh, here she is now. But I think we're going to be looking for funding, and I'm wondering where it's going to come from. Mark?
Well, my thought on that is it's almost March and we have to have a complete solidified plan with facts and figures before June. Not a lot of time.
Plus it has to be spent in the next 2 years. You can't sit in a fund for future use.
Okay, okay.
So there's a timeline to
Right.
process it.
So very definitely, we will be looking for funding for that future project, but this one to honor Dee Graham, I think is timely. And I do believe it would be possible to get it together, formed and gel on June. So that's why I'm proposing this one as a project.
Can I ask a couple of things?
Certainly.
So it sounds like that would be a very similar project, crossing the wetlands at the end of Mono Pond. Maybe you'd want to combine them as 2 projects to ask funds for. And I know I've worked on trail projects where I've done stuff over wetlands. It's not cheap, it's not easy, so. And does inland wetlands have to approve anything we do in these places? And, okay. And I would assume the state would too, there.
I think for this particular pot of money, it's premature to include a wetland crossing because we would have to go through wetlands. It is the state who gives permission, and we can't even get David Buckley to answer an email. So I think that we would not meet the deadline.
Unless Honor has made incredible progress with the master trail plan.
So I also think we'd have a little trouble with townspeople spending this money to build something on the state's land rather than on town land. I think.
Well, I think we have trouble with the state too.
Yeah.
They, I don't think, I
See,
think
I think the Eversource, I
enthusiasm may have
think that all you
put the state off. It's like, wait a minute, this is ours.
Mhm.
So, okay,
On the Eversource thing, we have to take a look and see what they've been doing on some of the other wetland crossings, whether they're just, whether they got a blanket, we can cross it.
Yeah, because sometimes they just put those giant wooden pads down. Maybe they could do that and leave them.
Accidentally on.
Yeah. Oh, it's up again.
The corridor there is actually on private property. It's not on, the state land is just off of that corridor. It's like the boundary of that corridor.
In a easement area that they don't maintain.
Yep. But that's something you could reach out to the abutting landowners to see if they,
I might have easier access to Eversource because they do communicate with me on these access points. They might talk to me a lot quicker than the state.
and it might be easier too, if you got approval of the private landowner to allow that to be there and allow access of a trail around, on it.
All right, I'll
Or the other thing you might want to think about, they don't necessarily have to cross, then we deal with the state, never mind. I was just thinking, we could give them permission to go out of the corridor to get across the wetlands, but then we involve the state.
it would. Okay, so I move that we create a plan for the Thomas's Road property to put a boardwalk in and present it to the Board of Selectmen to spend the ARPA funds. You can wordsmith that.
Something to that effect.
Is there a second? No. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay,
Raise your hand, Todd.
okay. So we'll get on with that. Honor, you probably have places to go and things to do. Would you like to report next?
And do we need?
Yeah.
we need a-
Hi, everyone. So I just wanted to give you a quick update. Sorry I'm late. I had some kid drop off. Challenges of one car. So I have a meeting set up with the state of Connecticut, Dave Buckley, Tom Tyler, and Brian Wilson, who are sort of on the leadership side of the DEP and parks and trails. And we're meeting on February 28th to talk about the creation of a master trails plan for Mono Pond State Park, which is inclusive of this somewhat major crossing between the old Mono Pond State Park, still Mono Pond State Park, and the newly acquired pieces. And so we're going to talk about that. I did have a preliminary conversation with Lori Giannotti, who manages the Rec Trails program. And from what I can tell, this would be eligible, both the planning and the creation of the trails under the state's Rec Trails program, not the federal Rec Trails program, but the state's. And so that will be sort of top of conversation when we meet with the state is, how do we position ourselves for funding from this program? Is the timing right? Is there funding available? Is it does it sort of meet the priority, sort of come to the top of the list and all of the other stuff that they have going on with trails. And so Lori Giannotti has been at the state for ages. She's retiring. I think Tom Tyler's retiring. I don't know who else. I mean, there's a huge retirement cliff, as we all know. So this is going to be, there are going to be some growing pains with leaving staff and new staff and things like that. But anyway, that meeting is set for the 28th. Mark, I think if it's possible, and I should have looped you in on the scheduling here, but if it's possible for you to attend, I think it would sort of strengthen the town's position as having a seat at this table for the stewardship management of Mono Pond. And I think, the existing letter of support from the Board of Selectmen towards creating this master plan speaks to, the town's support overall. You may have seen what's going on in Hebron at some of their properties with mountain biking, and there's a lot of, sort of conflicting uses happening there, and the state is removing some of the trails, and that's, the mountain bikers aren't happy, but the folks who want to preserve the natural resources aren't happy with the mountain bikers. And so anyway, there's a lot going on in I think being really proactive about this property. We just acquired it. Let's put out a trails plan. Let's get the, correct trails designated so that we don't have a situation where, we've got 25 miles of trails on, 400 acres. So I think everybody's on board with that approach being better than sort of letting illicit trails continue to exist. And then 10 years from now saying, oh, sorry, we got to close 20 of them. Anyway, that's where we are with the state. Mark,
I don't know what time that meeting is.
Yes, I believe it's 2:00 on the 28th. I'd have to check my calendar.
I think I'm gonna have to get a substitute. I'm on an airplane going on vacation that day.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
I don't know what time the flight is. If the flight's not till the afternoon, I'm in. I have to look. My
Sure.
wife-
Well, and I think someone from the Open Space Committee or someone, just representing the town, just as a listener, like we're here to, support DEP and TPL and the International Mountain Biking Association
Okay,
in the
good.
creation of this plan.
And is it a Zoom meeting?
It is.
Okay, good.
Would
You
it be-
will-
Would it be
you will
appropriate for
send
me to attend
link?
that as a representative of Friends?
Honor, please send forward the link, the Zoom link.
Yes. So it's, I don't think it's a meeting where we want like 20 people there because I don't think it would be productive. I think the DEP needs a little bit of like, comfort and this is a small meeting with a few decision makers, but whoever is the representative from the town should join and, be the voice here. So, whether you want to get together as a committee and with Mark and talk about what you want your position to be in advance of that meeting, that could be more productive than having every single person there.
And Honor, we have Tom McGrath here that represents our Friends of Zegda, our Friends of he's gonna be chairing the Friends of Monopond.
Perfect.
You want Tom at that meeting, or is that a future meeting?
Yeah, no, that would be fine. I think it's like, it's important for the town to be involved. You guys put in money to this and you got yourself a seat at the table. So, pull up your chair.
Very good. So it'll probably be Ann and Tom that'll represent us.
Oh, just reschedule your flight.
Yeah, just reschedule your vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll second
I- great.
That's
I'm a
great.
guest of my
Honor.
wife.
Thank
She
you.
won the vacation
Nice.
through work. So.
Honor, do you have any report for us that needs to be in executive session?
No update on land acquisitions stuff. I would just say that I think it would be really compelling to the state if there was, available match or funding for the trails plan. So we had always planned on fundraising and we're still able and willing to do that. But if there is funding from these ARA monies that could go towards something like this, I think that makes it really compelling to the state in that they're leveraging the money that they have for these programs with municipalities that are, have some skin in the game. So I don't know if that's even on the table, but could be a positive thing.
Yeah, and the town always has two sources. They have the general fund, which is authorized through a town meeting, board of selectmen town meeting. So that's where we usually find our matches or open space purchasing of land. But ARPA is definitely on the table if it could be expended before 2024.
Absolutely. I think both on the land acquisition side and on the trails planning side, that money would be dedicated and spent before 24.
Okay. Got it.
Excuse me, and that would be, I would think that would be a great use or proposal for some of the ARPA money if there's some dollar amount that you would suggest would be meaningful to the state commitment.
Yeah, so we had in our preliminary conversations with IMBA, the International Mountain Biking Association, which is sort of the umbrella to the NEMBA chapters here in Connecticut. We had talked about it being somewhere between $25,000 and $30,000 to create a comprehensive master trails plan, which takes into consideration all of the wetlands, natural resource, cultural resources, all of those things that should be avoided, and plans a trail system that goes to the most interesting places, the high points, while being sensitive to everything in the environment. And so, they have some really, really savvy and sophisticated trail planners in their that they contract at IMBA and do that work. And so, it sounds expensive, but in the long term, what they've seen as an organization is that, really well-planned trail systems, require very little maintenance in the long run, whereas these trail systems that are sort of user created and aren't really thoughtful, they tend to require a lot of, erosion control and rerouting and, moving around wetlands because it wasn't wet, but you went 2 inches down now and now it's wet, things like that. So IMBA is, top of the line, and they're actually cited in the DEP's own guidance document as one of the trail planners we should look to in creating these things. And so I think DEEP is going to be really receptive. I know, there are some challenges around mountain bike use and non-mountain bike use, but the goal is to have sort of a multi-use system. So, trails for hikers, possibly trails for mountain bikers and hikers, but that would all be sort of, assessed in the community surveys and the public engagement process that IMBA takes on when they do this plan. So long-winded answer, sorry.
No, that's okay. Mark, would that fit in the context of the ARPA funding?
Anna, are you saying you're looking for the town to come up with the whole 25 to 30,000 or a portion?
No, so I think there's two things. Well, there's 3 ways we can do this. TPL can fundraise $25,000, and that will take us a little bit of time because we've got to raise some money from the community and the mountain bikers, and also, this isn't, while IMBA's making the trails plan, it's not a trail plan just for mountain bikers. It's a comprehensive trails plan, just to be clear. They are just master trails planners, and so we can fundraise. That will take us a lot of time. We can go to the state for a rec trails program and talk about whether our proposal is well suited to get funding and whether there's a match required for this type of project. Considering it's already state land, the state theoretically could spend their own money on creating the trails plan for this project. But I think what would be really attractive to them would be to say, hey, the town of Columbia is willing to put in, $10,000 towards the match for, the state's own $10,000, and then maybe TPL fundraises the remainder, something like that, where they say, hey, this is a good bang for our buck, and the community's invested and there's private money coming in. I mean, I think that's the sort of win-win. Unless the state comes and volunteers and says, yeah, just apply for the grant, we'll pay for it all, and you're number one, then I think we look at it a little different. But
I'd suggest, Anna, after this February 28th meeting, when we kind of have a fleshed out game plan, then I think open space and you need to present to the Board of Selectmen this whole concept, because they really haven't heard any of this.
Sure.
I've kept the first selectman in the loop. But the whole board has to get behind this for it to happen.
of course, yeah. Yeah, I think we'll have a better idea after the
March.
28th.
So March will be probably the 3rd Tuesday of March is probably when we'd have to do it, because the 1st Tuesday of March, they'll be passing the budget voting on a budget to move it to FIPAC. So I'd say 15th, no, March 15th, maybe pencil that in as a possible discussion with Board of Selectmen.
That sounds good.
Okay, that'd be a night meeting at 7.
And so you won't have an open space meeting between now and March 15th, but we could convene somehow if we needed to.
Absolutely. Let me know. And let me know when you want to meet in between and get this organized. In the meantime, if Mark is not able to attend February 28th, Tom McGrath and I will. And we'll listen.
Could you send out a summary of what you hear then?
Absolutely.
So that we can all be thinking about that?
Oh, yeah, I'll keep everybody in the loop. And I may suggest at this meeting, if I'm not just a listener, that the town may possibly kick in some money for this plan. From the
Great.
ARPA money.
Yeah.
And we will all attend Board of Selectmen meeting to show support. Because I think we will need some opposition. But, you know, I think it's our turn. Anyway, anything else? Connor?
I think that's it from me.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Until the 28th.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Connor.
Yep, bye-bye.
Okay. So what do you think? That's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Sounds like she's got something going on.
Yeah, she does. The honor is a rep from the Trust for Public Land. And she is very, very good. And of course, it's a national organization, a nonprofit land trust. That's what TPL is, that backs her. So they have access to nationwide funding and things like that. And this particular project for the trail planning is a pilot program for TBL. So it's like we were in the right place at the right time to be one of their guinea pigs.
What is the process for applying for a grant for that? Well, not that, because of the state land, state land, on Mono Pond, that swamp bridge. I don't know what we want to call that, the swamp bridge. The crossover, I don't know what we want to call that.
Yeah,
The crossing, the swamp crossing,
the crossing.
yeah.
Yes.
Could we apply for a grant with the state to do that, or is there? Or there really is no,
I think it
since
starts,
it's state lands,
Right.
I think it starts before that the state has to want to do it, which I guess a part of this meeting is the discussion, that they would do that as a part of this master plan.
yeah.
If they don't want to cross it, then they don't want to cross it. We have no, unless we move the crossing over to the abutting private land that had a trail that went around, but it's still crossing wetlands up there.
Yeah.
My guesstimate, it's about a 500-foot crossing. There's a beaver pond there and different things, so.
So I think there are a lot of factors coming together here. The fact that Hebron is, they are acquiring a great deal of open space between the airline trail and the center of Hebron, because they're trying to tie the airline trail and their economic development in Hebron. And so in between, they've got, they're trying to piece together open space. And what's happening all over Hebron, Grayville Park and everywhere, it is that mountain bikes are coming in willy-nilly and making their own trails, and they're running into trouble with that because there's no link. So the state is getting kind of excited about that, you know, like they're not really in favor of that. They're running into trouble. So I think that will encourage them to take our virgin property, which isn't really, sort of, and make a plan for it. So again, right place, right time. So I see a lot of these factors coming together favorably for us. So it will be very important for us to get facts, figures, and our whole plan together before we take it to the Board of Selectmen, because they could sink the boat. And we have to present it carefully and enthusiastically and forcefully.
With a smile.
With a smile.
One of the things you have to look at in all these boardwalk type things, they tend to rot away and have to be replaced. The old stuff has to be hauled away. So if there's any way to use permanent materials and culverts, rocks and things that are in the area, you're, in the long run, it's much better.
Right. Absolutely. So we will probably, once we get a little planning going here, after the beginning of March, we'll probably have a special meeting to share what happens on February 28th and get input and then plan how we're going to put this all together. And also meet with Dan.
We did in Devil's Top Yard, Boy Scout, Eagle Scout projects, we made some of the wetland crossings, they were just a little wet. We made stone paths. That, you know, they were big stones, we had to move them, but it made it permanent.
Yeah, well, I worked on ones where we made the boardwalks, but we had locust logs, because they like don't rot at all. And I've done them with, where you had small culverts and raised, you know,
With dirt above the culvert.
just, yeah, no, we just boardwalks on top, wooden pressure treated boardwalks on top of the culvert, so the water and everything could flow through. Where we made like a 1/4 mile boardwalk that way, down in Middlefield, and the other one was up in Salisbury. So I mean, there's a lot of ways to do it, but it's expensive if you use pressure treated materials to buy it and build it in the beginning, and it's expensive to maintain in the future, so it's just a matter of what they want.
And they're very expensive at the moment.
Yeah,
Okay,
and the state may have regulations as far as heights and widths and weight covering and railings.
okay. I'm looking at the agenda here. Rob, would you like to report on the plans that you have for, looking at the boundaries of the 2 new brand?
Right now, I've got, actually working on a plan now that shows basically the whole Mountain State Park, plus the pieces that I've got a layout. A little bit, the only thing I have to do is I want to take the plan that the DEP guy did with all those trails, maybe superimpose that onto the plan I have. Other than that, it's ready to go. Maybe the next open space thing, I'll bring that. The regular meeting.
And if you give it to me electronically, I could share it.
Oh, that's
I'm
exactly,
sure.
I can do it quicker now, yeah.
Yes, and share it with us electronically too.
Yeah.
That would be good.
Yeah, I forgot that I actually had, the town used to have CAD drawings of all the assessors maps. I got copies of those years and years ago. They had the whole Mono Pond State Park on that. So I've just basically tied that to all the surveys we've done. So it's pretty accurate representation of what's out there. Good.
Good. That's wonderful. And the property, what are we going to call the swamp across the street? The D. Graham Marsh?
I think we already have a name for it. I think
Do we?
the Rams told us what they wanted to be known as. It's in the name of it is in the purchase deed. And we just got them. Let me see if Jen still has one. I might be able to answer that for you right now.
Okay.
We just got the hard copy of the title.
That'd be good to have for the motion that we're making.
Yes.
But
sure something was there.
So we're going to, but you and Mark are gonna mark the boundaries out
Well, we'll
there
see what we
when
can
the
find, yeah.
weather gets.
We'll have to see what we can find. We don't, I mean, I've never walked the back, I'm assuming there's property pits or stuff that goes back there, but doing this for a living, that's not always the case.
Yeah.
But we'll see what we can find.
What portion of it is lot 9 for a subdivision?
Yeah.
So,
Pretty much the back of all the subdivision lots and swamp is basically what we want, because we're
Right.
not going to the other side of the swamp, that's, I don't believe that's in the future. Where is it? It's all
I
private property.
believe this, well, I'm not sure. I know David Tuttle owns right to the water.
Yeah, so I think that it's not practical to have a path go around, unless you donated a trail around it.
No,
Which doesn't happen.
Okay,
No.
this, if I can interrupt,
yes,
the 24.96 acres on a certain map or plan entitled Proposed Anita Fay Ram Conservation Property.
Can you spell that for me?
So Anita,
All
ANITA,
right.
then Fay, FAY,
Uh-huh.
and then Ram, RAMM.
Right.
Conservation Property,
Conservation property.
right?
So,
Sounds much nicer than the swamp property to me.
I was just gonna say that, Todd. Yes, conservation property.
Oh, now hold on. Here's an edit to that. This lot has been created for conservation purposes only and not for development of any kind and shall be known as the Anita Fay Ram Conservation Land.
Land.
Land instead of property.
Land. Okay.
big properties too.
Well, you can't develop it.
I'm gonna call it
Can't put
reserve
deck
or
on it.
something, but that's all right. Land's better.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, can we put a boardwalk in if you
Yeah,
can't?
because that's what David wanted.
I know he did.
So I think what he's saying is you can't put a house on it.
Yeah.
No,
We'll ask the
And
donator what he was.
so if there's a conservation property, what is the conservation language in the deed?
Well, I think we'll figure that
There
out.
should be,
I just got this. It arrived yesterday afternoon. So I haven't read it.
good, Paula Stahl should have a look at that
Okay,
and check the, you know, if there's any holes in the.
oh, now here's funny, on the comprehensive affidavit, it says Anita Fay Ram Conservation Property. So we'll have to look. It's both
Yeah,
ways.
because land, there's not a lot of land, there's a lot of water. Okay, but I'd like to know. I'd like to see.
Okay, well, you can stay afterwards.
I will do that.
Read away. We'll figure it out.
Okay,
Thanks, Ann.
I'll do that. Okay, moving right along here. I don't think we need an executive session, do we? No. Okay, I'm gonna update and. All right, I think we're done. Board member comments?
I have a question.
No, go for it, Tom.
Quite a number of years ago, we had a trails committee in town that was,
We did,
I think the parent organization was the Conservation and Agricultural Commission.
yes.
Should we look to establishing that again? And is that where it should lie under, or where should, and how would that interact with these other trail things that are going on? Or is it not the right time to think about that?
Yeah, I don't think you want to add something else to it at this point.
But yeah, Bob Olkis, when I joined the Trails Committee, was the leader of the band on that. And what we did was, we would set up, once a month or so, we'd have a little project. Like, okay, we're gonna lock the edges of the trails on the Utley Hill Preserve. And we would do that. We'd get together. And if we had a wet spot, we'd put stepping stones in, things like that. We did. And we'd spend no more than 2 or 3 hours, and sometimes less, on a Saturday or a Sunday. And it was kind of fun. We laid trails, we maintained trails, and that kind of thing.
How large a group was that?
I don't know, we probably had about 8 people, 8, 10.
East Town Land Trust does the same exact thing. They have every other Saturday, it's trail maintenance and they pick a place to meet. And you bring the tools and away you go.
And Bolton has the same thing. Most conservation commissions do. And, but then Bob resigned and nobody jumped in to lead it.
I think Tom should be the trail boss.
Is that another paid position?
Yeah, it comes with a
Stipend,
hat.
half what I'm making now.
And the other issue was that a lot of us aged out.
See Tom Johnson.
Yeah. I used to be, but Columbia right now has about 20 miles of trails. And it's on different properties, Joshua's Trust, Cowan Land, State Land, Zebda Farm, I mean, it's all over the place. So it's like, that was one of those things, do you want a trails committee for the town doing work on Joshua's Trust land? You have to have Joshua's Trust, because they have their own work parties and stuff, so. The
Well,
same thing with the state, if all these trails are developed, at some point, somebody's gonna, maybe volunteers maintain them. And maybe that falls under the Friends of Mono Pond for just that one thing.
Yeah.
We're such a small town, it ends up being the same volunteers going to 6 meetings instead of 1.
Yeah, Tom, I think that once you go through the formative stages of the Friends of Mono Pond and you actually have an organization, I think those are the people you want to bring into it. Like the Friends of Hammonasset has over 300 members. And you'll bring those people to the Friends group, and then you'll have a subcommittee for trail maintenance and stuff.
Yeah, my understanding is we can establish the Friends group like tomorrow morning, but then move forward with making it a nonprofit after that, so.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, so that's, but it's like, do you want it just to be Friends of Mono Pond? Or do we end up wanting to have something else that's a trail committee in town for all these different trails? Like, you know,
No, I think you keep the Friends of Mono Pond separate from, I mean, I think that's an organization within itself that you're really dedicated to Mono Pond.
but as with happens, you see, for instance, Tom is not a member of open space, but here is participating. And so I think the people who are in Friends of Mono Pond would probably also put their hands up because they're interested to go clear a trail somewhere else. That's what happens in a small town. You wind up like 12 committees, right, Tom?
Yep.
Where we run everything. Anyway, so, yeah, I don't think we have to get too technical or possessive about that. We just do what needs to be done. The trick is, though, I'm so old that I don't know these young people who would have the strong backs, and so we need our newer members
Right here, the next question I
step
have
up
was,
and bring friends.
has everybody in this group walked in that area that we're talking about, where the wetlands are and where the new property is?
I have.
I have not.
If anybody wants to go out there and doesn't know where it is, you know, I live just down the road and can make, you know, you can make arrangements with me and I can walk you out there and show you, here's where the property lines are, here's what we're talking about, here's the existing trails, but the new piece of land is nice.
It
really is not.
really
I've,
is.
I've been out there a lot in the past few weeks snowshoeing, and, because I've always, for the past few years, I've been over at Second Farm, so I haven't walked in my backyard, so that was the opposite, so.
I have one more thing before we adjourn. Justin, in an email, we indicated that he'd like to request the meetings be scheduled in the evenings for
Right.
family members. It's, for people who have families, I should say, kids and thing, and work. And I think it would be good for us to discuss that, and not today, at least, but get back to him on that a little bit.
Well, he did send out another email this morning at 4 o'clock this morning to reply to say, even an hour, even to move this meeting from 8 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock, because of other commitments, like Mark's and, people that have that responsibility during the day for the town. But even just an hour, myself even, obviously, Honor had issues this morning, kids.
Yep.
And I think that would also help with some of the parents that are out there that do have time after their kids get off to school and this, that, and other thing. 9 o'clock's a good time and have a little more public involvement. Because the 8 o'clock is tough for parents.
It's tough for me.
It's it's tough to get out of bed, right?
It's hard to get out of bed.
And even right now, it's not that it's an issue, but it's a real big inconvenience. I just left Jen with 8 kids and a school bus to take care of, so, with the daycare, so
Yeah.
it's,
What about you, Mark?
9 o'clock's fine.
What do you think?
I think we should do everything we can to help and encourage younger people to participate and facilitate their attendance. Yes, so I think
You might want to vote on a new meeting schedule, so you're not all special meetings.
Yeah.
If you do that,
yeah, how would we do that?
you would just resubmit your meeting schedule to the town clerk.
Yeah.
And
So we.
they would stamp it and we publish it as that's your meeting schedule.
So we could vote to just keep our meetings on the same days, but move them.
That's
to
important to keep the same day because
9
it also has
o'clock.
a ripple effect.
Yeah.
In for your other meetings.
well, I'll make a motion if it's time. I'll make a motion to move our monthly meeting schedule from 8 AM to 9 AM.
How does that,
That would be okay for me. You can check some people like Honor and stuff, make sure, I don't think it makes a difference there, but actually it'd be better for me, because then I could actually go to the office when I need to go there, come here, which is, would be advantageous, actually.
Yeah, I think everybody's in favor.
Paul Ramsey?
Yep, that's fine. I know that Chris just sleeps late, that's all.
We have been up for hours. And
Yeah, come
You're
on.
here 6 if you could.
Come on, be honest.
All right,
Okay,
all right, so Paul, Zader, move that, who seconded?
Michael,
Dan seconded, okay.
okay, any further discussion? This is monumental, 20 years.
At 8 o'clock.
Well, we started meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning because Carol
Yeah.
Schuster didn't like driving at night, so. So we started coming in at 8 o'clock in the morning instead.
The real story.
Yeah, the real story, and you had to go to work.
Yeah, and I had to go to work, so.
He had to go to work. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Unanimous.
So moved. I will take the responsibility to submit
You'll take care of that,
a new form
okay.
changing our meeting time. The dates will remain.
Okay. We have to let Justin know so he doesn't show up here at 8 o'clock.
Good.
Okay, yes. and I will let Justin know. Good, we can all sleep in.
Not me.
Yes.
Okay, any other business, any other board member comments, audience of citizens?
We don't have anybody else in the chat.
No audience assistance.
Oh, true.
Just Tom.
Thomas,
Nothing more to say.
Okay, then I
Exhausted.
move we adjourn.
We adjourned at
Favor?
9:06.
9:06. Not too bad.
Trust the public land, it's a spin-off of the Nature Conservancy.